Ave Maria. Welcome back to No Apologies. I'm Brother Joseph, and we want to begin to look at the controversy of the Church and Galileo. Today we want to put forth a summary of what took place. Galileo was a mathematician who lived from the year 1564 to 1642, and it is his astronomical discoveries that he is best known for. The scientific belief of the time, founded on the thought of Aristotle, was that the earth was the center of the universe, and that all other celestial bodies revolved around it. And this was called geocentricity. The opposite theory, that the sun was the center of the universe, is called heliocentricity, and is attributed to a man named Nicholas Copernicus, who died just a short time before Galileo was born in 1543. His theory was met with opposition and even ridicule by his contemporaries because of its novelty, and also because, although he put forth reasonings behind his theory, they were never actually able to be proved scientifically. It was Copernicus's work that Galileo took up in the year 1609. He constructed a telescope and began to discover answers to some of the objections which had been raised concerning the theory. The moon was seen not to be a smooth and perfect sphere as had been taught, but it contained valleys and hills just like the earth. And Jupiter was discovered to have satellites, displaying a solar system in miniature, which supported Copernicus's thought. And one objection was that if the theory were true, then Venus and Mercury, which were planets in between the earth and the sun, should show phases like the moon as they made the course of their rotation. Those not being visible with the naked eye were discovered by Galileo's telescope and proved that the phases did exist. The difficulty was that not all the objections were able to be answered, and that not all the hypotheses were able to be proven, some of which, in fact, have now been proven as false. For example, he sought to prove the rotation of the earth on its axis by appealing to an explanation of the earth's tides, rather than it being, as we know today, the influence of the moon. And he also maintained that comets were an atmospheric phenomenon like meteors, rather than what we know today to be ice and rock reacting to the sun's heat. So it's in light of these uncertainties and unproven hypotheses that his clash with the Church has to be seen. Heliocentricity was still only a theory. It was not proven by Copernicus, and it was not absolutely proven by Galileo. And this was all that the Church insisted upon. It could not be put forth as de facto because it had not been completely scientifically proven. It was Galileo, however, began to assert this theory as the truth, without having answered the remaining issues. And in doing so, he insisted that certain scriptures, such as Joshua chapter 10:13, which says that the sun stood still and the moon stayed, had to be interpreted differently, whereas up to the date they had been taken literally. The Church had and has no difficulty with interpreting parts of the Bible symbolically, but she did have a difficulty with being told to do so on the basis of a theory that had not been proven true. This truth can be seen in a letter written by Cardinal Bellarmine, who was a member of the Sacred College who had questioned Galileo, which was sent to Foscarini, who was a Carmelite friar who was defending Galileo. And in the letter, the Cardinal writes, "I say that if a real proof be found that the sun is fixed and does not revolve around the earth, but the earth round the sun, then it will be necessary very carefully to proceed to the explanation of the passages of Scripture which appear to be contrary, and we should rather say that we have misunderstood these than pronounce that to be false which is demonstrated." Galileo was never told that he could not teach the theory, but that he could not teach the theory as being more than just a hypothesis. Anything more than that, until proven, would have to be considered as false teaching or heresy, and thus punishable by the Church authorities, as Galileo was a son of the Church. That is proven true from the fact that when he was called to questioning in 1616 and Copernicus's work was put on the index or declared forbidden, it was done so until corrected. And in 1620, those specific corrections that were necessary were indicated. 9 sentences which taught heliocentric system as an established truth had to be changed or removed. If that was done, then the book and the materials could be removed from the index. At this first questioning, Galileo accepted and promised not to teach the theory as having been established. He continued his work, but he returned to Rome in 1624, still not finding an annul of the judgment by the new Pope, then Pope Urban VIII. He returned to Florence and composed his dialogue of the two sun-centered advocates confounding the earth-centered advocate. It was published in 1632, and it clearly violated his promise and the directives sent forth by the Church. Having then been called back into questioning, he denied having held the theory. That denial wasn't taken seriously, and he was condemned as vehemently suspected of heresy. He was taken into custody, but it was untrue to talk about him as being a prisoner in the strict sense of being in a cell with barred windows, whereas during the time of his questioning, the 22 days, he spent in the buildings of the Holy Office, where he was given an apartment by one of the officials, and after that time of questioning, he was permitted to use the houses of his friends as his places of confinement. The truth of this proper care and even courteous treatment is testified to in letters written to the Tuscan king by his Vatican ambassador and friend of Galileo, Niccolini. In April of 1633, he wrote in a letter concerning Galileo, "He has a servant in every convenience," and in June he wrote, "In regard to the person of Galileo, he ought to be imprisoned for some time because he disobeyed the orders of 1616. But the Pope says that after the publication of the sentence, he will consider with me as to what can be done to afflict him as little as possible." These letters also dispel the myth that Galileo was tortured in his confinement and that he was blinded during his confinement, as Niccolini certainly would have reported this. Thanks for joining me here on No Apologies. Ave Maria.